Now this, over the weekend, the U.S. flexing its muscles in the disputed South China Sea region, launching jets, surveillance planes, helicopters. I think a B-52 was included in all of those military exercises. Let's bring in Christian Whiton, former State Department official. Christian, I guess, is there a confrontation brewing with China, or is this just more saber-rattling?
It's more of a show of force. It's been a long time coming. You know, the U.S. Navy only has 11 active carriers now. One of those is always in overhaul. About half of the rest are in port. So to get two carriers in the South China Sea or near there at the same time is a big deal. And this is something that our allies have been asking for. It's not just the United States versus China. The Taiwanese have suffered incursions in their air defense identification zone from China. The Australians, even the Filipinos, the Vietnamese are all concerned about China. So this is a show of force. And it actually, we know it proved its point. The Global Times, which is one of China's many government mouthpieces, said that U.S. carriers are only allowed in the South China Sea at the pleasure of the Chinese. The U.S. Navy tweeting back on top of that, well, here we are. We don't need their permission to perform freedom of navigation, which is what the Navy is doing.
All right, another one for you, Christian. Protests in Hong Kong continuing over the weekend, and the first person charged over that national security law appearing in court today. I want you to listen to what Larry Kudlow had to say about China and Hong Kong. Roll that tape.
Taking Hong Kong's freedom away is a global event. It is sending a message that China cannot be trusted, that China is never going to be a free country. It moves in exactly the wrong direction. And, you know, we're going to have a G7 meeting later in the summer here in Washington, D.C., and the China story is going to be front and center because it's not just us. Europeans are displeased, Canadians are displeased, Indians and Japanese are very displeased. So we'll be talking about that for quite some time.
All right, Christian, this has been a thorny issue, certainly. How does this all play out, the Hong Kong issue and Beijing's continued incursion into Hong Kong?
I think you'll see a smoldering dissent movement in Hong Kong. I mean, essentially, this does away with Hong Kong as sort of like a West Berlin inside the enemy's camp, if you will. It makes it more like, frankly, Poland under martial law. Freedom has essentially receded. The front line is now Taiwan. It's no longer Hong Kong. But Xi Jinping, for all of his strong-arm tactics, violating the joint declaration they had with Great Britain, violating the basic law, taking away one country, two systems, which was promised to Hong Kong till at least 2049, breaking those international agreements. You know, that's sort of all done with now. And going beyond what Kudlow said, this really calls into question whether Hong Kong can continue to be a financial center. You know, they're saying, oh, don't worry, we're just going to go after the protesters. We're not going to affect finance. It's sort of impossible to do. They're going to chase media out of town. I mean, what if you put out an annual report and you criticize economic conditions on the mainland and someone says, oh, that's unpatriotic, that violates the national security law?
Right.
You know, I think, frankly, one place in the world where commercial real estate probably is going to be in very high demand is Singapore, as finance companies flee Hong Kong for other places.
It does feel like the U.S.-China relationship is taking a bit of a nosedive. How does this impact the trade deal, the overall trade deal? We're still kind of puttering around with phase one. It doesn't bode well, does it?
It doesn't. It's frankly strikes me as a little bit odd the president hasn't just recognized that this is dead. I think he wants some of the agricultural purchases that the Chinese have promised. They haven't fulfilled their obligations under that, not by a long shot. And frankly, if you're going to rip the Band-Aid off and recognize that this trade relationship is going south, why not do it now when it's going to get lost amid all the economic, you know, we have the turmoil behind us. We're now in the recovery. I think you're going to see a strong upswing. So if you shave, you know, a quarter of a point here or there off GDP because of the China deal, just do it. But I think the president probably wants to wait until after the election.
Yeah, I think you're right. We'll have to leave it right there. Christian Whiton, great stuff as always, talking about China and the ongoing issues. Christian, thank you very much. Appreciate it.